Hello, and welcome to the fifth episode of the 10th Divine Podcast. This is a show about Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm your host, Shanty, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Raven. How are you doing this week?
Well, London is having its hottest week ever, which is very exciting. So it's only 27 degrees today. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but on Monday and Tuesday, it's going to get to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38, perhaps 40 degrees Celsius, which is unheard of in the UK and is a huge problem because we don't have any air conditioning. And all our rail companies think that our rail tracks are going to melt, and they also think that overhead wires might melt, and basically it's going to be a complete disaster. Hooray! I hope things are cooler in your part of the world. Probably not, actually.
Actually, no. Right now, we're at a nice balmy 76 is the forecast for today, and I'm going a little further north after we record, so it'll be even slightly cooler than that.
Okay.
But
okay, so that's 24.
So experience anything.
Yeah, that's 24. So that's just a bit cooler than it is here right now. So yeah, that seems nice.
Yeah, but I've been at work pretty much all week, like 53 hours. So that was no fun.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's no fun at all. But you've got 2 weeks off now, so that's great.
Yes, that is a blessing. But we're also very excited for today's guest, a Twitch streamer, YouTuber, and founder of ESO University, Nefas. How are you doing, Nefas?
I am doing okay. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to have you here.
All right, so what have you gotten up to in-game since we last recorded?
Well, we have, in our little EU little dungeon team, we've started clearing our first veteran dungeons. Oh, yes. So we have. We've managed to get through 3 or 4 now. The first time we tried it, I just set it to random, and it gave us a really hard one, and so we just got smeared across the floor in a very kind of thin paste, so that was quite exciting. But I went back and looked up kind of an order to see which ones were the easiest, and we picked an easier one, and now we've done Wayrest Sewers 1, and we've done Crypt of Hearts 1, and we did City of Ash, and we did Fungal Grotto. So those kind of beginning-y ones, we've cleared some dungeons on Vet, which I'm pretty pleased about. So it feels like we're making a bit of progress into the end game of ESO, and started thinking about like gear sets and trying to understand gear sets, which is at least less complex than it is in World of Warcraft. So that's something. But yeah, it's been quite good. We're feeling quite accomplished. I've also made a bit more progress on the main storyline in High Isle. I'm about halfway through the main story. I've now found the people who were lost, and I guess we're now going to have to defeat the people who defeat the bad guys. I guess that's the next step, right? So yeah, it's quite good. We're making progress across all areas. Making progress. How about you?
Well, I haven't been up to too much C53-hour work week, but I have advanced Cold Harbor a little bit on my EU account. My NA accounts have both kind of languished a little bit because I haven't had time. How about you, Nefas? What have you gotten up to recently?
A lot.
That's okay. I'm glad somebody's playing the game.
Yeah, at least as far as in-game goes on the live server, it's been mostly guild management. You mentioned I manage ESO University, but I also on the side manage like a 2,000 plus member guild server as well for ESO.
Wow.
And this week there were some events, and we had to take care of those, or respond to what was happening, and we just have to kind of like we just have to like expand on our organization and stuff like that. So it's been pretty hectic on that end. Otherwise, I've just been doing daily writs as usual, some raids here and there, and that's really it.
Yeah, managing a 2,000 person guild, that must take some time. I can't imagine that's an easy or quick thing to do.
Oh yeah, it needs a lot of help for sure.
All right, so let us go ahead and dive into the interview proper here. We'd like to start with a couple of icebreaker type questions just to help our listeners get to know you. So, what was your introduction to the Elder Scrolls in general and ESO in particular?
Oh man, that's a pretty long story. I don't know if you guys want to listen to me ramble on about it.
Yeah, ramble on, ramble on. We're all about rambling on.
So I used to play a decent amount of MMOs, and each one didn't really stick on me for too long. And eventually, I shifted over to playing more competitive-oriented games, such as MOBAs. So I started playing things like Dota, the first one, like on the classic Warcraft mod, and then when Dota 2 came out, I heavily played that for at least a few years. And then it just kind of wore off on me over time, because with games like that, unless you're going for like high level of competition, or there's no sense of permanence, really.
Yeah.
There's no sense of, okay, I won this match. What do I get? Well, I get another new match where I have to, start all over again.
Yeah.
So I had this desire for a permanence, some sort of like home or community. And then that's when, the ads were starting to come out for the Elder Scrolls Online. I got involved in the beta, and I've been here ever since for the past however many years, 8-9 years at this point.
Cool. So you've never played any of the single-player Elder Scrolls games? It's just straight into ESO for you?
I have. I've played a little bit of Morrowind, an okay amount of Oblivion, and then a good amount of Skyrim.
Yeah.
So I got hooked on Skyrim just like everybody else when it came out, and for a year or so after. And then when I heard they were making basically what I thought was gonna be Skyrim Online, but with big battles and PvP, I was like, you know what? Let's try it out. And that was kind of my transition point.
Cool. Are you a single character type player, or do you have a bunch of alts doing different things?
A bunch of things. I have 18 characters on PCNA.
Oh, okay.
Mostly because I don't play all of them like to the max level, like kind of thing. I just have all of them for crafting writs. And I also have characters on, I think 2 playable characters on PC Europe, and 1 on PlayStation NA, and 1 on Xbox NA.
Oh wow, so you've got all the bases covered.
Kind of, yeah.
All right, so what was your start in content creation?
That's also a long story. I feel like I have a similar answer to any other content creator might ask that from ESO. It just kind of started out with me just uploading videos to YouTube for fun. I'm not sure if the videos are there anymore, but if you go back and look at some of the really old videos, it was just videos of me running with 3 other friends from the same guild in like City of Ash 2. I didn't know how to video edit. I didn't know how to do anything. I was just like, okay, it's just cool. So I'm uploading videos, and there were some social events, roleplay events too. I also uploaded videos of that. It was basically like unfiltered, like everything. There's no editing at all. Yeah. And eventually, I got a bit more involved into PvE after after a fair amount of PvP and role playing, and that's when people started asking me for help on like their Bloodspawn DPS parses or stuff like that. Because back in the day, we would go into Spindle Clutch and test our DPS, not on a dummy because dummies didn't exist, but on a dungeon boss, and it was usually Bloodspawn or Slimecraw, the alligator monster in Wayrest. And then I would help people, and then they were, because it's so frustrating to try to help someone that's not next to you. I mean, if you're physically next to somebody, it's really easy to help them. I helped my ex clear Maelstrom Arena, and it was more doable because I was next to her.
Yeah.
When you're trying to teach someone remotely, there aren't that many tools available for you to do so, apart from like maybe live streaming it. And of course, Discord didn't really exist back then either. It was just TeamSpeak.
Yeah.
So I just ended up uploading videos and saying, hey, this is how I'm doing it. And then that's really it. At that point, it became apparent as time went on that people really wanted videos to help them. But I didn't really get into content creation seriously until about two or so years ago. That's when I started like actually thinking of, okay, I can maybe try this full time or part time at least and see how it goes. Before that, it was kind of like me just uploading videos of, oh, here's me clearing a trial at the highest level possible, or just talking about random stuff about ESO. And it was only to maybe a few hundred people at the start, at most, and then it just kind of grew over time.
Cool. Was it sort of a pandemic related thing a couple of years ago, or was there a particular point where you were like, yeah, you know what, I've made it, I'm going to do it? Like, what was the prompt to try and make a career out of it?
It was planned before the pandemic.
Okay, so the pandemic nearly ruined your plans. Okay.
Yeah, I think it ruined everybody's plans.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It continues to do so. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's not very good. But yeah, so I had majored in biotechnology, specifically agro-industry, and I worked and studied overseas as well. And when I came back, I spent some time just kind of relaxing, because it was a very tedious and also very difficult experience abroad. And I was abroad for about maybe I'm trying to think. Sorry.
Sorry.
I think about 4 or 5, somewhere around 4 to 6 years abroad. And I went there when I graduated high school, and 1 year early. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to go to college immediately. I just want to travel and see the world for a bit and what it's like. And I kind of regret it.
Oh,
I mean,
that's a shame.
Well, it's like, wow, it's really cool seeing new cultures, meeting friends and stuff like that, and learning about the world. But at the same time, it's like the world's kind of shitty. Excuse my French. So, then I came back, and I was tired. I was really tired, and there were some other stuff going on in my life. I was really tired, so I wanted like a retreat. So I kind of just went to a random, kind of like in the middle of nowhere place to live, and then that's kind of where I was like, okay, well, I want to I thought about like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And was it like I enjoyed the sciences? I love biotech and stuff like that. But then I was like, history is a passion of mine, like probably the biggest passion of mine, history. And I was like, maybe I should try to get into the field. And that's when I went for the degree, got it, and also started the process of perhaps going for a PhD, or a master's. And I did it, and that was very recently. I finally finished. Fortunately, debt-free as well, which is pretty lucky. And between all that, I was like, okay, I want to do ESO content creation part-time.
Okay.
And if it works out, and I followed Deltia's advice. I don't know if you guys know Deltia.
Yeah.
He's also an ESO content creator, because he made this video where he was quitting ESO, and he gave advice to people in that video, where he said, if you want to try content creation, you should try it. Try it for a year and see if it's working out or good for you. And that's it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try it for a year. And I tried that for a year, and it kept growing. And at one point, I was like, okay, I can potentially see myself going full-time maybe in the future. Cool. And I have gone full-time recently. So it's been pretty hectic, but also very liberating. But also weird, because I'm like, okay, I just spent years and years of my life for these degrees. I'm not using these degrees for my current passion. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So yeah, it's pretty weird.
I think it's always good to have education. You can always use it in the future.
Oh,
That's
sure,
cool.
for sure.
Yeah, you'll find something to do. It's fine. Recently, they've retired the concept, but you were an ESO class representative. What did that entail?
So I was part of the second, I guess you would say, generation. So the first iteration or generation of class reps, they were, I guess, how should I explain this? So the first iteration was more or less kind of a popularity contest in terms of like, okay, who do you guys want to represent you as a player base? And I think there was like a thread where Gina posted and people nominating each other and stuff like that. And eventually the 10 class reps were picked. And eventually 5 of them, for whatever reason, had to be phased out or had to be removed and so on. And that's when I came in with the 4 other new class reps. And that entailed basically at that point just relaying pain points and feedback from the player base about not just classes, because at that point it's evolved from just class pain points or class balancing to combat balancing, and that's a much larger sphere, much more complicated, more nuanced. So that's what it basically entailed. Like, can we basically filter through these literally thousands of posts, thousands of people complaining about a lot of things. How do we, because we have to play the game at a good enough level to understand what's going on here. We also talked to the devs. We had meetings where we would go over, okay, here's what's happening right now. Here's our suggestions. And of course, I can't really, because the non-disclosure agreement is still legally in effect.
Of course.
So I can't tell you what they said to us. But I can tell you what we said to them. We gave them feedback and stuff like that. And they were very, really nice, polite, and generally all around wonderful people. And it really gave me at least a huge insight into how much work really goes into the back end of this game. Like when I'm doing crafting writs in ESO, I don't really think about it. Like when I approach this crafting station, like what does that mean for a dev, like on the back end? You know what I mean? Like it's just there's so much detail I can't even fathom. Because when we started working on the ESO website, we had to like keep stress testing the website. Like we had to click through stuff, test it for bugs and stuff like that. And we had a lot of bugs. And I thought to myself, like, if this is a website, like how do you, what about a game? So yeah, it was a very enlightening and also privileged position or program. And yeah, it recently was ended because they had different at this point, different goals / vision / methods of collecting feedback and stuff like that. So yeah. And that's basically the class program.
Cool.
So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's a bit of a misnomer because people kept asking me, what class did you represent, or what class do you represent? Are you DK class rep? And it used to be like that, and that's why they chose 10 people because it was Stam Sork, Max Sork. So you have 2 of each of the 5 classes. And, I would say it was more of a combat rep by the time we were done.
Okay, so while class representatives may be going away, you are still part of the official ESO stream team. What was the process for that like? Applying, getting accepted, requirements?
Process. Well, first I thought to myself, well, what do they want? So I started like watching the ESO stream team members, right? I started watching Ninja. I started watching all these other people, and I was like, man, I'm not getting in there because I was like, I'm not as nice as these people. Honestly, they're really wonderful people. I'm pretty trash compared to them in a lot of the ways. I still think I am. And I was like, man, these are really nice people, and I understand why they're in the stream team. regardless of their skill level too, because a lot of people seem to think for some reason you need to be like super good at all the aspects of the game to either be a stream team member or class member or whatever, and that's not true at all. I think it's really about engagement and the communal experience that you provide. And I started trying to work on myself, and also at the same time I wasn't really worrying about the ESO stream team, to be honest. That was kind of like a faraway goal. My first goals were to just make content and then see what happens and try to go for Twitch partner. And I thought to myself, well, if I have a Twitch partnership, it could be that I have a higher likelihood of getting to the stream team anyway. So let's get this out of the way first. And then once I get a Twitch partnership, which is not all that is cracked out to be, unfortunately.
No. It seems to be quite under supported and a bit problematic. We've been hearing from all sorts of people.
Yeah, and it was problematic in itself. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for the ESO stream team. And the process is basically you email them why you should be there, or like what you think you can provide as a stream team member or member of the community, essentially. And there was no response for, I believe, at least 2 patches, so that's 6 months. And I was like, okay, and I'm not a very well liked person by a majority of players for whatever reason it may be. So I was like, maybe that's why they're not doing it. But then I was like, well, I'll just keep applying every so often. And I think after the 2nd or 3rd application, I got in, much to my surprise. And I was really grateful for that because, because before I was a stream team member, Gina and I have talked to one another before on multiple occasions, even before the class trip as well. And I think she understood the risks, the potential risks of me joining it. Because again, I'm not very popular with a lot of players. I tend to be polarizing. I don't know why, in the rational sense, but that's just the way it is. So yeah, that's what happened. So it was definitely about that long.
So perseverance got you there in the end.
Yeah, I suppose so, and luck.
Yeah, luck,
sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we've referenced this a couple of times already, but could you explain to our lovely listeners what the ESO University is all about?
Ooh. So the ESO University started out as actually my personal server, and at the time, this was during when there started to become more and more ESO servers in general for Discord. Certainly, like a lot were made before even ZeniMax made their own official ESO server. So these servers got really popular, and one of the servers that got really popular because of the change of times, and by that I mean before Discord, ESO was very isolated in terms of communities. What I mean by that is, if you were on PC North America before 1 Tamriel, you could only talk to people in your own faction, whether you are in the PvE guild or instance or PvP. After 1 Tamriel, you could interact with everybody across multiple factions and communities on your own platform and server. After Discord, now you can more easily talk to people from PCUU, which was unheard of at the time, because only a few of us got to ever talk to a couple of them, really, at least in the endgame scene, or maybe through the forums if you and you wouldn't even know if they were from PCU, right? And then that opened up a lot more options, because now console players can join these spaces. And it was a very messy process. It was a huge collision of different cultures, different personalities, toxic personalities, chill personality, the whole thing, the whole package. It was very messy. And there was one such Discord where pretty much all the endgame players could go to. And we tried providing at least some sort of space where we could discuss, strategies, optimization, discussions about what rating is like, or competitive score pushing and stuff like that. But it didn't, like, at the end of the day, it wasn't enough of a welcoming space, because there were, due to the histories of different groups and individuals, including myself, and yeah, I'll be the first one to always admit, like, we were pretty abrasive. And it's just not a welcoming space. So if, let's say, you're a new player, you go in there, you probably wouldn't want to associate with me or any person, right? So what does that mean? It means, well, what's the chances of that community growing? So of course, over time it stagnates. You have the same people over and over in different raid teams, different groups, and there's no real effort to really teach, at least on a organized, massive scale, newer raiders or newer players what they're doing wrong, or maybe what they can improve on, and so forth. And when I was starting on content creation part-time, I was like, okay, I'm going to make my own server, because that's what everybody else is doing. Everyone has their own server.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Dots Gaming has his own server. Outcast made a Discord server. You can name any content creator. Even today, large and small, they have their own server, whether it's 15 people or 1,500 people, whatever, right? And then I thought to myself at the time, as the Discord grew to 1,000, 2,000 people, it was like, what are they doing here? No, I'm serious. Like, what are they doing here? Just to, like, yeah, we can talk about ESO. Yeah, we can, like, talk about the videos I make. They can get pinged whenever I go live or upload a video. But really, what are you doing here? Like, what do you gain? What's the value? Nothing really. In the end, it's all useless. And I had a friend at the time at Sona who was really passionate, at least, about showing players what to do, because Discord's video chat, like the one we're in right now, right? You can live stream your game, and then you literally go over real time through watching that screen what they're doing and what you can offer in terms of advice. And he was really passionate about that. And I thought to myself, well, this Discord server is like the same old. What if we made the server where not only are there endgame players talking to one another, what if we could bring in other people that are not endgame or are starting to try to progress content that we think is easy, but it's obviously not for the newer players? What if we also held classes, like on a bi-weekly or even monthly schedule, where some people will volunteer and be like, hey, I'm going to stream myself parsing on the dummy. Come on in and I'll go over some pointers if you're having trouble with X class. And we expanded on the idea. So we made it at Sona's Academy, but then he quit the game. And we made it a bit more in general. I didn't want people to think that it was someone's, right? Yeah. I didn't want people to think, oh, this is Nefas' server. I wanted people to think this was like a general communal space. Yeah. And I intentionally avoided promoting myself through the server. So I stopped pinging people. I stopped posting my own videos. And I said, okay, if you're a content creator as well, come on in. We'll also post your videos through the bot and stuff like that, and share your website and share your stuff. And eventually it grew from about 1,000, 2,000 people when it was my server to about 8,000, and then just skyrocketed from there. And now we have almost 20,000 people at this point. So
20,000 people. Oh my goodness.
We're expecting to probably, yeah, it is. And of course, with that number comes more issues, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
Wow.
of ESO, basically.
That's so cool. So people could just join your server and get help doing stuff and find out how they can improve their game, improve their end game, that kind of thing.
You can also, if you're not comfortable with asking questions in the open channels where everyone can see, or if maybe someone's being a dick about it, obviously that's not good. But so we have this system where you can just open a ticket channel, and the only people who can see that channel is you and just the faculty, the people who and you can ask us, like, you have me in there, you have like maybe other content creators that those people might look up to or really like Outcast is there, NetDelty is there too now. There's PvP content creators that can answer your questions one-on-one. Like,
oh, amazing.
So we have an entire system of not just classes or open channels where you can discuss and ask questions, but you can also just open the channel and we'll answer your question, just like that. And we'll add it to the website or the FAQ channel, basically. So other people, and without your name as well, of course, just to like maintain some sort of free anonymity. I cannot pronounce that word. Anonymity. Anonymity.
Anonymity.
Like, yeah. Sorry. I'm really bad at that.
That's okay.
Because a lot of people feel like maybe this is a stupid question. I don't want to ask. But then there's so many people like that, so why not just post that question without the asker's name in the public space, and people can access it anytime they want, either through website or through Discord. Doesn't matter. So yeah, we have a whole bunch of cool stuff.
Okay, so I guess it's time for us to finally let the cat out of the bag and tell you that this show is part of Bonus Roll Productions. You can find our show and lots of other great MMO-focused podcasts, such as Girls Gone WoW, featuring Raven herself, Podcast Reborn, and for Azeroth, over at bonusroll.gg. And now I'm going to turn it over to Raven for a few words.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to say Bonus Roll Productions is the organization formerly known as Warcraft Radio. We've been part of this network from the beginning. I've been part of this network with Girls Gone WoW for several years at this point. The plan was always to launch 10th Divine on Bonus Roll Productions, but life happened and things took a bit longer for the rebrand to get organized. Really delighted to be able to bring you the show on this amazing network, though, and I just wanted to take a moment to give a huge shout out to Ketra and Pride and Uma and Manny and all of the team over at Bonus Roll, because this has been a huge transformational process for them. We had to build a new website, which was a challenge, and yeah, it's been an amazing process. So Bonus Roll Productions, formerly Warcraft Radio, for all of your kind of MMO needs. So do go and check out the new website, bonusroll.gg. So back to the interview after our brief commercial break. As newer players ourselves, we're still working through the dungeons, and as I said at the beginning, I've just started getting into vet content, but starting to think about maybe putting a trial team together. So what could you tell us about Project Vitality?
A lot of things. I guess in what's supposed to be so for the past 2 years as well, I've had this idea. Because everything was like kind of multi-pronged for me in terms of not just me going for Twitch partnership. Well, why am I going for Twitch partnership? Apart from maybe some personal goals, I also wanted to make because as a Twitch partner, you can make a Twitch stream team. You make up to 2 in your lifetime on that account that you get Twitch partnership on. And I wanted to make a Twitch stream team because at the time, 2 years ago or so, most of the streamers in the Twitch directory did not stream trials. They barely even really streamed, veteran dungeons. A lot of the popular streamers were either streaming PvP before that demographic started to decline even more, and they were also streaming just more casual content, which is there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to just see a greater representation of the PvE endgame. And I was like, what if I made a stream team? And we made it, the Harmless Stream Team, and help people understand, hey, through these guys, you can not only join their communities, you can also like maybe ask them questions, promote content, basically at the end of the day, like trials, even if it's normal trials or hard mode trials or veteran trials, whatever. And we did that. And the ESO Discord just kind of provided a platform for a voice of a community in a sense. And through that, it was apparent to me, like, it's not enough. It just isn't enough for someone like me to say, okay, Here's how I'm going to teach you. I'm going to make a video. Here's my DPS build. Here are my stats. Here's my CP. Here's what I use. Here's my rotation. It's not enough. Even if you can do that across multiple content creators, it's simply not enough for various reasons that are not only tied with audience reach, but also within the game itself in terms of the lack of the advanced combat tutorials it presents for people to have an easy transition into harder content. So what do you do? And the idea at the time when I was formulating it, brainstorming it, was, well, what if we had a more hands-on approach? Like, these classes are working fantastically. When we ping for classes, we usually have over 70, maybe 100 people just join voice chat and just sit there and just listen and watch the person presenting their class. It's amazing.
Cool.
But it's not enough either, because at the end of the day, you're telling them, here's the class, here's what I'm doing, you're learning, right? But this is kind of like the same problem with some university curriculums, I would say, or public school curriculums. They teach you the theories, they teach you the concepts, but they don't really teach you to apply it. Like, why am I learning math here when you're not even teaching me how to apply it in the real world, or even teach me how to write a check? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nonsense, right? Like, when you go out in the world, you don't know how to take out loan, but what is credit and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, this isn't enough. Maybe we need a more hands-on approach. And I started having this idea: what if we invited guild masters and raid leads from all kinds of levels of experience? That doesn't matter if you are a raid lead starting out and you're only comfortable with doing normal trials, or if you're GM of a small guild or a huge guild. What if you sent a representative and said, okay, because you have to have some incentive here, because I can't just be like, hey, run a raid once every 2 weeks in this Discord and get nothing for it. I have to give them their own channel, like a channel where they can have a permanent Discord link. And when they ping people in that channel and have the roster there, and if people like that raid lead or GM or whoever they send to host these raids once every 2 weeks or once every week, they could join their community, their guild. Because at the end of the day, every endgame player, every endgame guild, or whoever you talk to, are always interested in bringing new players. There's this concept, there's this perspective of us as like being the toxic elitist gatekeepers. And I'm like, okay, let's upend that perspective and just simply open up raiding. That's my other idea with this project. Like, I see all these guilds all the time, and they're not even that, like, no offense to them, they're not even that great, but they have close to score pushing standards. Because score pushing to me is like the absolute pinnacle. Like, that's when you have done everything and you're just going for bragging rights. And these people are asking like these newer raiders, people who've never parsed on a raid dummy, or are intimidated to, or they don't know where to start, and they're asking them, okay, show me a 90k parse to do content from 2016. Wow. That's ridiculous. No, there are a lot of guilds that do this, a lot of servers, and this creates the perception of endgame as inaccessible. There's too many barriers. And the idea with Project Vitality is, okay, not only do we have an open raid environment, but when you get to a certain point in this open raid environment, the standards for what we can, like the standards for the content, the DLC content beyond VMAW Hard Mode, is a lot lower, or is up to the more loose discretion of the raid lead. So, for example, some guilds will ask you for 80, 90k parses for VOF hard mode. In the ESOU, we're only asking for 50k as a DPS. And that's just a DPS, because not a lot of people like to talk about this. We can talk about DPS requirements. That's like the typical experience of a newer player or newer raider coming into the scene. But we don't talk about the stress and barriers we put onto supports, right? Like tanks and healers. Well, what sets do they need to farm to fulfill these requirements? And these sets are often locked behind harder group content, or more inaccessible content, meaning you have to do the trial to do the trial. Right? At a certain sense, you can say, okay, you can just do the normal version. You can do that, but oftentimes a lot of people still don't want to do normal, or maybe you do normal through Craglorn pugging, or you do, I don't know, like you're kind of out there fending for yourself. And then we have the audacity as a community to say, where are all the tanks? Well, we don't have the welcoming space. Well, why do you expect these people to stick around? Like it's nonsense. It's almost hypocritical in a way. And that's another problem Project Vitality is tackling on. Like, hey, if you're learning as a tank or as a healer, you don't need to have all these OP sets. You don't need to farm. Just come on in. We'll teach you the content. And we've relaxed the set requirements because back then in 2016, 2017, 2018, we didn't have all this stuff. We didn't even have Necromancer for a major vulnerability. So why is it that when we cleared content back then, suddenly these requirements are in place now for the older content? It doesn't make sense to me. So that's a huge part of Project Vitality. And then again, the other part is not just because we've tried this Project Vitality as a concept out as a guild. So again, I mentioned running a guild earlier, Sempiternal. We always try to have open reigns. We also do carries. We do a bunch of stuff. We have a guild trader, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are trying to get people into endgame raiding as a newer player, or whatever, newer role. And we've tried all these different ideas, different incentives. We've literally paid people, or not paid, but like raffles and prizes. Like, hey, if you raid, you get a raffle ticket, and it's not enough. So when people do try all these ideas I presented to you just now with the Project Vitality on a guild scale, it isn't enough because the retention rate as you progress through content is really low. So, for example, let's say I start out with 1,100 people. By the time we're done progging a lot of these trials, we got the skins. And again, we can talk about reward system because that's intrinsically tied into the retention rate, in my opinion, and the game structure. But as you go through the content, people get what they want. Then they dip.
Yeah.
After that, who's left? Maybe 1 or 2 out of the original 12. So when you try that on the guild level, it doesn't work. It's just not enough. When you try it on a server level, which we tried with the rating competition last year, I believe, on PCNA, it's still not enough. So the idea also is, okay, let's do this open raid environment in Project Vitality on PCNA, PCEU, PlayStation NA, PlayStation EU, Xbox NA, Xbox EU. So right now we're running raids across all platforms and servers. In fact, over the past 2 months, we've exceeded over, at this point, 1,600 raids in the past 2 months since it started.
Cool.
And it's been pretty cool for the most part. Obviously, there's like bumps and other issues and stuff like that, including the next patch. So yeah, that's basically what Project Vitality is.
Okay, so in the YouTube videos introducing Project Vitality and giving a recap of how things were going after the first week, you mentioned that this was a long-term project.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about the pace things are moving so far? Are they ahead or behind or about where you expected?
Pretty much about where I expected, except the current climate of things in regards to the next patch. So
yeah. It's been an interesting week for patch.
Yeah, we can talk a lot about that. But in regards to where we're at, outside excluding that the next patch and the sentiments surrounding it and people's actions surrounding it, outside of that, things are kind of where they should be. For example, I expected this idea, to excite people, but of course, with any product or service in the real world, after the initial hype, it dies down, no matter what. And I expected people to not be committed, to flake. There's going to be drama because not only are you interacting more with the 19,000 other people in the server, but you're putting different people of different skill levels and different backgrounds in the same space where they feel like, as raid leads, I mean, they can do, you know what I mean? It's just like there can be potential for drama. There can be potential for burnout. there's just a lot of factors that we took into account, or at least I took into account when I planned this out. I realized, and that's why I said in those videos, this is a really high. This project that has a really high chance of failure from the get-go. Like the moment I announced it, I expected it to fail maybe within the first probably 4 to 5 months, because it's a very human project. So the reason why it could succeed is because it's a very human project. The reason why it could fail is also because it's a very human project. People can be very shitty. People can be very inconsistent or fickle, and I accept that. And it's worth a try, because if it does succeed, it can solve a lot of our problems that we see in the rating community. Like a lot, pretty much, a lot of them. Retention rate potentially. Endgame prog teams typically have issues filling their rosters, not because there aren't enough raiders, but because there aren't enough qualified raiders, at least in their eyes. And you see teams cannibalize each other in terms of rosters, right? So let's say Team A might be one of the 2 best teams in the world. Team A, as an example, suddenly loses 2 or 3 people next patch. Well, what did they do? You're gonna get a Craglord, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna look at the next best team, and you're gonna ask those people on that team, hey, do you want to score push or do trials with us next patch? And what ends up happening is that Team B loses players. So Team B looks at Team C and says, it just keeps going and going, and teams die because of that. And the reason is the filters for letting people into the rating scene is just too small. And that's why Project Vitality has all these loose, really low standards in terms of accessibility. Like you can look at any guild, any server, we have the lowest standards in terms of requirements. And it's meant to be that way. And if people don't like those standards, and if people don't want to participate in that system, that's great too, because you remember I told you about the guilds, right? The channels they have, it's kind of like each channel is their embassy, right? You can just go to their servers and run whatever you want with them. So cool. In the end, the goal is not to centralize rating in ESOU, which a lot of people seem to think it is. It's to simply say, if you're rating, that's good enough for me. That's it. If you're rating somewhere, I don't care where you're rating. I don't care if you're not in ESOU, just go raid. And a big part of that reason is if we can grow our demographic, and this is historically proven with ESO's history, then maybe on both the business and dev end, maybe the rating community will be more cared about. And that's really the ultimate goal today, a shift in demographic and also more care for us.
What advice would you have for newer players who are thinking about just starting out in trials?
Don't be intimidating. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. A lot of people seem to think, even if you mess up as a tank and wipe the group, whatever, who cares? And if anyone yells at you or whatever, that's really not good, and that's their issue. Just play it and wipe, fail, have fun. It's a social experience more so than a content experience, in my opinion. And I would say everyone would agree with me on that one, because I've been raiding for the past 6 years, and I'd say if it was just about the content, I would have left a long time ago. But it's really It's a very social experience. So treat it as such, as you would with any other social event, honestly, and just have fun with it, and realize that even if you make mistakes, that's okay, because even the best players make mistakes all the time. The YouTube videos you see, that's just a result. That's not the process. When they're streaming it, you'll see them wiping over and over and over. You'll see them dying over and over and over, and they're still having fun. So whatever.
Yeah, cool. Definitely would have stopped playing World of Warcraft quite a long time ago if I didn't run a casual raid team. And we have a lot of fun dying in ridiculous manners because we didn't understand a raid mechanic or somebody fell off the edge. Wednesday night, we discovered that the platform we were standing on didn't have a barrier. As the tank, I'm standing healing, and suddenly the tank goes flying across in front of me, and I was like, oh, okay. that's going to be suboptimal. Okay, never mind. Yeah, definitely. It's a social thing. Definitely treat it as a social thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, with a 12-man team, it's a lot easier to find a full group to try to work together than in a lot of other games.
That's funny because we say the opposite in ESO. Because I think a lot of ESO players, this is their first MMO. So 12 is a lot. Whereas in WoW, of course, you have a lot more. I don't know about Final Fantasy 14, but I'm assuming there's a lot more players in the raid group. And some other MMOs I played, also a lot of players, like 24 maybe, or 18. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, WoW's gone at the lower levels of raiding. Obviously, WoW's gone very flexible, so you can have anywhere between 10 and 30 players, and you can just bring as many people as you've got, as long as you've got 2 tanks and an appropriate number of healers. So it's quite flexible now, because I think raiding's a bit of a dying art in all MMOs, partly I think because of the problems that you're trying to solve. So kind of the gatekeeping and the not knowing how to get into it, and it feeling like a really hard, difficult thing. So yeah, interesting to try and find 12 as a number instead of 10, but definitely at higher levels it's 20, 25. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, so these next couple questions are just kind of for fun. So going back to the start of the year, you were very confident that the new chapter wouldn't focus solely on Bretons, much so that you staked your hair on it.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was in Redguard. I still think it should have been Redguard, to be honest, but yeah.
So what do you personally predict the next chapter will be? And yes, I know it's still 6 months before we even really see teasers.
Redguard. It has to be Redguard. It has to be.
They'll get it right next time. Redguard.
I hope so. It has to be, because that culture I feel like isn't explored enough either. Because when they said, "Hey, we're gonna dive deep into a race/culture we haven't really dived deep into," I was like, immediately Redguard, because what do people really know about Redguard, at least within the mainstream community? I'm not talking about like the lore beards or the lore people knowing everything there is to know about Redguard, but it just doesn't feel like, at least in ESO, there were enough interactions with Redguard. And of course, they also have political infighting, which they also mentioned, because they're also going to explore the political infighting of this culture as a clue. And that's why I was like, Redguard. And also a new zone that we've never seen before, Redguard. So yeah.
All right. If you could take one fantasy race or species from inside of ESO and transplant them into reality, what would it be?
Khajiit. For sure. 100%.
That's correct answer. Yes. And you are the second person to give that correct answer. Perfect. As you can see on the video, Shanty and I have houses full of house cats. So, yeah.
And I main a Khajiit too, so...
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and it'll be the same name, FSQS.
And, cool. Yeah. And how do they find the ESO University and Project Vitality and all of those kinds of things?
It's mainly run through the Discord. You can get just discord.gg/ESOU, or you can check the website eso-u.com for further updates and stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. If you've enjoyed it, you can let other people know and give us a review wherever you are listening to us. Rating and reviewing the show will help other people find it. Don't review other people, that would be rude. You can also give us a review over at the Bonus Roll podcast directory. Go to bonusroll.gg/directory to find it. You want to get in touch with the show, you can find us on Twitter at 10th Divine Pod, or you can email us at 10thdivinepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to find us in other places, you can find me, Raven, over at Girls Gone WoW, if you're a World of Warcraft fan, or if tabletop RPGs are your thing, check out As the Dice Roll, where I'm part of the crew of the Cautious Optimism. You can find me on Twitter at Silky Raven or on the GGW Discord at girlsgonewild.net/Discord. There's a channel over there for ESO Chatter, and we've got lots of other general gaming chat too.
And you can find me, Shanty, on Twitter or Twitch, both at Shantyman Gaming. I stream a variety of MMOs. You can also find me on the Girls Gone Wild Discord, joining in the ESO Chatter and Gaming Chat, and a whole variety of other gaming Discords. Feel free to say hello if you happen to see me online. We will be back in a fortnight with another lovely chat about ESO. Bye!
Bye!